Hello again and welcome to our May 2023 edition of Quick Kit. Links to everything we mentioned will be down in the description below. Let's get into it. ARRI have released their first major firmware update for the Alexa 35, SUP 1.1. It's available to download now on ARRI's website and brings a good range of additions and improvements to the camera. First off, they've added a new recording format, which allows you to capture 3.8K UHD ARRI RAW. This is for people who want to record RAW, but know that they will be delivering in a 16:9 aspect ratio. This will allow you to save on some data, but of course you are cropping in on the sensor, so you are losing sensor size and resolution. In this mode, you have a maximum frame rate of 65 frames per second using the 1TB compact codecs cards, or 120 frames per second using the newer, faster 2TB cards. They have also added 4 new user button function options. VF Check allows the monitor in the eyepiece to cycle between an SDR and HDR viewing preset. VF Processing adds a log C4 mode into that cycle, and Audio Solo allows you to monitor a single channel of audio at a time. And lastly, you have an FPS preset function. This allows you to dial in the exact frame rate you want to set it at and then assign it to a given button on the camera. You can then hit it once to go into that frame rate and again to go back to your previous set rate. You could even assign multiple frame rates to different buttons so you can easily switch on the fly. This is a really great addition and will make the camera so much faster to operate, which would be great for documentary shooters. They've also added a new wireless video optimized log C4 profile, which should help with workflows that have on-set colorists receiving an image wirelessly. Other than that, there's a few small changes and bug fixes. If you want to see the full release, I've put a link to the new firmware in the description below. ARRI also announced their latest on-camera monitor, the CCM-1. This is a 7-inch monitor that they have made in partnership with SMHD, and it can provide full camera control and menu access for the Alexa 35 and Mini LF. It can be connected via the same fantastic connector and cable used on the EVF2. This single cable will provide power, video and full camera control while also keeping an SDI free. However, it will only provide enough power for the monitor to run at 100 nits, which will be fine for most indoor scenarios, but a no-go for a lot of outdoor situations. If you want to run it at the 1000 nits peak brightness, you'll have to power the monitor via the 3-pin power input on the back of it. There are also an array of mounting points for accessories on the rear, so you can mount a battery plate to provide power if you are away from the camera. It also has both a 3G SDI in and 3G SDI in or out, and a USB port which will allow you to connect it to a camera via Ethernet adapter. It can be controlled via touchscreen or via the array of buttons and joysticks that can all be operated on one side of the monitor. Monitoring tools such as false color and peaking will only affect your image, not the UI overlays, unlike using a regular monitor. Zoom functions also take advantage of sensor level monitoring, which will make it much better to judge focus on. ARRI have also released a few accessories to go with it, which includes the Mac 1, a little monitor mount for it which partly uses ARRI's new 1/4-inch thread with locating pin standard that they have made available to the masses with this release. Fingers crossed we see more brands using it ASAP. Anyway, ARRI have released a fantastic overview of the monitor as well as the new SUP for the Alexa 35, so if you want to learn more details about either of them, check out the links in the description below. We've released the KOMODO-X earlier this month, and we had the pleasure of creating a release video for it, which you should check out if you haven't. But in short, the KOMODO-X features a 6K global shutter sensor capable of capturing 6K up to 80, 4K up to 120, and 2K up to 240 frames per second, all in a 17:9 aspect ratio in 16-bit RAW. It shares a very similar body to the Komodo, but it's roughly 19mm longer to help house some of the awesome new features, such as a range of updated inputs and outputs, integrated mini V-mount plate, locking RF mount, and it now uses CF Express Type B media. The Stormtrooper units are fully sold out now, but black units should be shipping relatively soon, so if you do want to get your hands on one, you can put a pre-order in now on our website. Red also released 2 new beta firmwares, one for the Komodo and one for their V-Raptor line. These new firmware updates are more focused around bug fixes, and this isn't too surprising given that they have had more substantial firmware releases fairly recently, though these are still beta firmware. They are available to download now via the links below. Cooke has collaborated with EZ Track to create a new workflow to help merge images from live set cameras with CG imagery in near real time. This is done by using Cooke's comprehensive lens mapping and /I data technology paired with EZ Track's camera tracking and data aggregation hub. This means that on set, VFX teams will have all the data they need to combine CG elements with real-world imagery really fast. And while the composites that are created on set may not be cinema ready, they will at least be workable for the directors to get an idea of how the shot will look with VFX applied, and could even be good enough to send to edit. Sets are becoming more connected, and this is an exciting advancement that should hopefully improve production workflows going forward. Fujifilm have announced their latest hybrid mirrorless camera, the XS20. This is a mid-range body that actually has some pretty impressive specs given its price. It features a 26 megapixel X-Trans sensor with improved in-body stabilization and a new range of recording options over its predecessor. Its Super 35 sensor can record up to 6.2K, has a 3.2 open gate mode, and can output RAW via the HDMI, which are all quite unique at its price point. You can also record in 4K up to 60p in 4210-bit, and in 1080p up to 240 frames per second in the camera's high frame rate mode. It also has a new Full HD LP mode, which allows for longer recording times, but this does crop in and reduce the quality of your image a bit. It will also have a lot of great stills features and functions that you would expect from a Fuji camera. The XH2 and XT5 also received new firmware updates to improve the autofocus as well. Aputure have announced a collaboration with EcoFlow to provide the Delta Pro power solution. We've been using a range of EcoFlows in our studio and showrooms for a while now, and they've been incredibly useful. This Aputure product looks pretty much identical to the Delta Pro from EcoFlow. It is a very quiet 3600 watt-hour portable battery that has a huge range of outputs. It can power a 1200D Pro at maximum output for up to 2 hours. While this isn't necessarily a new product, it's hopefully the start of a new partnership that will result in some more tailored products from EcoFlow for Aputure products. Canon have announced their latest entry-level mirrorless camera, the R100. This is their most affordable EOS R camera, and to keep costs down, they have cut out a good few features that are available from some of their other R series cameras. It features the same sensor and processor as the M50 Mark II, which means it's a 24.1 megapixel APS-C sensor capable of capturing cropped UHD video up to 23.98 frames per second, Full HD up to 60 frames per second, and HD up to 120 frames per second. It has dual pixel autofocus with subject detection, uses Canon's LPE17 battery, has an OLED viewfinder, a single UHS-1 SD card slot, and a reduced amount of buttons and controls over other cameras. At its price, it could be a good pickup for anyone wanting to buy their first DSLR or mirrorless style camera. With this, they also announced the new 28mm f2.8 STM, their lightest pancake RF mount prime. They also announced the PowerShot V10, which is a pocket-sized 4K vlogging camera that looks pretty unique. Earlier this month, we hosted the inaugural European Lens Summit, and it was an awesome weekend. There weren't loads of new announcements at it, but there were a few things that were great to check out in person. Laowa had their new range of full-frame cine zooms, and they are so tiny given their image circle. These look really nice from the time I spent with them, and I really can't wait to get a pair in to test ASAP. ARRI had their impression filters set up for people to check out, and they really are an intriguing concept. We should be creating a video around the signatures soon, so let us know what you'd like to see with these. I also managed to shoot some behind the scenes with one of Hawke's mini hybrid anamorphics, which was pretty awesome to do. And lastly, we're incredibly lucky to have one of the rarest and most famous lenses in existence at the show, the Zeiss Planar 50mm f/0.7 lens that Stanley Kubrick used for his legendary candlelit interior shots in Barry Lyndon. It was incredible to see such an amazing piece of cinema history in person. Earlier this month, Panasonic released the S5 IIX. We managed to get our hands on one and have made a video all about it, so if you haven't checked out that video, you can via the links below. For those of you that haven't watched it, it's very similar to the S5 II, but has seen a few improvements to make it more focused towards video shooters, such as the ability to record 5.8K ProRes to an external USB-C SSD, new intra-frame compression options internally, the ability to output ProRes RAW or B-RAW externally via the HDMI, and a range of wireless and wired IP streaming options. It's an awesome camera for the price, so if you want to learn more, check out the video below. Right, let's get into our quickfire honourable mentions. Links to details about these are in the description below. Ambient has released new firmware for all of their Lockit units, which now allows them to be used in a new TX mode. Apple has brought both Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro to iPad. Blackmagic has released Blackmagic RAW 3.1, which adds support for the RAW output from the S5 II and S5 IIX. They have also released DaVinci Resolve 18.5 Beta. Cream Source has updated firmware for the Vortex LED fixtures. Data Video has released the BC15P, a new 4K POV box camera. DJI announced the Matrice 350 RTK, their latest enterprise focused drone system, and the Mavic Pro 3 and Cine version of it too. Holyland announced the Solidcom C1 Pro hub. Insta360 released new firmware for the X3. Leica have announced their latest camera, the Q3. Mica released a new adapter that allows the use of Sony E-mount lenses on Nikon Z-mount cameras. Nanlux announced their Evoke 2400B, their latest 2400 watt bi-color LED fixture. Nikon announced the Z8 mirrorless camera. Sabrent have announced a new range of Civ Express Type B cards. Samyang have announced a new 45mm T1.9 for their VAF prime lens series. Shape released a new set of baby legs. Smorig have announced a new series of cages for the Z8. And lastly, Sony announced the ZV-12 vlogging camera. If you enjoyed this, please make sure to subscribe ready for next month's Quick Kit. And let us know what kit you've picked up this month in the comments below. And thank you so much for watching.